How you doing? Joel Evans live from CES 2009. We're here with Les Stroud, the star of Survivorman. Les, thanks for taking some time to be with us today.
My pleasure.
Les, you're well known for being a one-man show when you've been out there. So some of the questions we have for you is the type of gear that you brought along with you and why you chose that gear. Before we get into that, if you could give us a little bit of an idea of what gave you the idea to actually do the show
To
itself.
start Survivorman itself. You know, I mean, things happen in that sort of serendipitous fashion where one thing leads to another and sort of goes along the way. Well, I had the skills of adventure and survival. I've been doing that for a lot of years. Before that, of course, I was into, I've made rock videos up in Canada and learned my camera work, my editing, back when it was shuttle busing with tape and so on.
Right.
And so I had all that skill level in my background as well. And at some point, when the Survivor Series hit big, and I had this idea to do survival, but film it all myself, show the real story of survival by actually living it, I just put the two of them together and said, well, I have my technology, what I can do with camera gear and editing, and I have my adventure lifestyle, put the two of them together, and Survivorman was born out of that.
So now, did the editing actually happen when you were on the road, or you would do that after you got picked up and went back to the ranch?
Originally, it would happen when I would come back. Now, the very first time I started doing all of it, I actually did everything, right, top to bottom. I went out in the field and I filmed it all.
Right.
I came back home and I edited it. I did my own color correcting, my own audio posting. I scored the music with friends. I put it all together in my basement,
Right.
literally in my basement, and on, put international broadcast show done from my basement in Northern Ontario, Canada, because the technology was there.
Right.
And it was just beginning at that point, because you're talking 2000, that technology was getting to that place where I could start doing it out of my bed, proving you could do an international broadcast show from your basement.
Right.
And I loved it. I loved the whole technology of it. I loved everything that I learned. Learning all the cross platforms from editing to camera work taught me how to work with my editors and cameramen later on.
Sure.
And now I have editors, right? I have a budget, so
Right.
I can still do my own shooting. So nowadays, it's a matter of get out in the field, but I still take it back home. I'm not editing in the field yet, but now I'm working on doing, and actually working with Sony on doing a pretty major blog situation, something that's not out there right now.
Okay.
There's video blogging, but what I'm about to attempt and do is not out there. And that I want to be immediate, like literally in the field and on air.
About the tech that you used when you were out and about. Anything ever fail you? And if so, what? And what do you wish you could have had while you were out there?
Yeah, lots of things fail out there, and they go by the wayside over the years. That's why I ended up being into Sony a lot. Same thing even with the Vegas, with the editing now, using Vegas. A lot of things fail as you try all the different platforms. You end up gravitating towards what works. Which at this point, I'm feeling really good about a lot of the gear that I'm using.
Yeah.
And that's not, sure, I'm getting in bed a bit with Sony, but I'm only there because I want to be there.
Sure.
If it was another brand that I thought was strongest for what I do, that's where I'd be.
Okay.
So what do I wish I had? Wow. I don't know, I just keep, even now here at CES, I go out there and it's a drool fest.
Right.
It's like, well, I wish I had that, and that, and that, and that, and that, and that. So, I wish I had a lot of stuff.
Well, if I picked you up right now and I put you in the middle of nowhere, and
Yeah.
you could take like 3 pieces of gear with you, what would it be?
Wow.
Feel free to name all Sony products too. We're not.
Yeah, no. I'll tell you what. I'll name something that's not invented yet, and I want to challenge Sony to this. I want video production, high def, of course, that can handle the outside. Because, as you know, technology, the camera we're using right now to video this, everything we do, what you guys do at Geek.com, what goes online, technically speaking, you don't want to get it wet.
Right.
You don't want dust and sand in there. And so if all of us are out there trying to create content, right, content creators, that's what I am, I'm a content creator first, I'm out there. So I want gear that can help me be out there and not worry about it shutting down with the dew meter coming up. Bleep, 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 wait, shut down, turn off, pull. I want something like that. I think Sony's now giving me products that I can work with, going right to hard disk, that ability is next. Now I think the next world is pulling away from mini DV tapes and all of that. And for some of you already into it, going, well, duh, I've been doing that for 2 years.
Right.
I get that, but in my world, I can't because I do so much shooting. I got 45, 50 hours of it. I can't just have it, and now we're getting to that place where I can.
Right.
So what do I want? I want the latest and greatest from Sony's cameras just to be out there with me. That's what I want because it's always.
Or if you can name some very specific products that have worked well for you, and even some that have failed you.
Well, right in the very beginning, I think you and I were talking earlier about the fact that when I started off, I used different brands. I had Panasonic, JVC, Canon, Sony all lined up. And one of the problems is when I got back into the edit suite, I had a white balance and a nightmare. And then I learned very quickly that what I need to do is stick with one brand. You know, you jump around like that, you give yourself technical problems that are horrific for the editors. And then I literally lined up the Panasonic, the Canon, the JVC, and the Sonys, and I put them up, and I did low light testing, bright light testing, mobility testings, and Sony kept winning. I started off with like the VX3000 or something into the high 8s, and then into the mini DVs, started doing PD150s, the PD170s, the Z1Us, the B1Us this year, and now I'm working with the SDR12s for vlogging and so on. Same thing with editing. I've worked on DPS Velocity, I've worked on Avids, I started on Medium 100, Final Cut Pro for a lot of the beginning of Survivorman, and now working on Vegas, and even Movie Studio 9. I was here talking about Movie Studio 9. Now, I don't need to use it so much because I'm a Vegas guy and I'm a pro, but it transfers very well into the non-pro world to work with the little brother of Vegas. So these are some of the products that, for me, why I like sticking in the Sony world. And you get that flow through. If you're using one of the new Sony cameras, like an SDR12 or a Z1U still or whatever, the flow through from it into Vegas is seamless.
Sure.
It's very important.
So let's talk for a second about from, let's say, the first episode you shot to the last episode you shot. One of the things I've noticed is even coming out to cover CES this year, my gear bag has shrunk considerably.
Yeah.
So what was that like? What did you start with and what did you end with?
Oh, the very first Survivorman, I had shoulder mount JVC like this, and I had a Sony, VX1000, and then I had the weird shaped Canon.
Sure.
What are they called? L1s, I think they used to be called. And so the gear was heavy, and when I used to do my canoe tripping, same thing, big camera cases with these shoulder mounts. And now literally, what is it, Sony POV is a camera that's, I'm going to be putting in my pocket with a little...
And you're going to get the same quality, if not better.
That's right, and the same thing flows through when you get into post, you get in the editing suite. Editing used to be clunky, right, in the days of Big Avid and $50,000 systems and so on. And I used to fight that world saying, no, when Final Cut came along at that point, it was like, look, I can still do an awful lot. And now these other companies, and especially in a situation like with Sony in Vegas, they can take all those lessons and boil it down into something not clunky. You get home. So we just did a session here looking at Movie Studio 9. Everything we showed was real time, no rendering. Nobody wants to spend time digitizing and rendering, and so these new cameras going into recording right to hard disk and right onto flash technology, spitting that right onto the web even in places, very fast.
All right, one last question. It's not a technology question. Scariest moment in all of your filming?
Scariest moment in all of my filming. You mean technologically or physically?
Physically.
It's sort of understated, but it was in the Kalahari Desert, 141 degrees. I got heat stroke. I'm chased by a jaguar, treed by a 1,500-pound moose. But the heat stroke is it's a slow creep, and it'll kill you. And it sort of kills you without you kind of being ready for it, because next thing you know, you just succumb. And that was a pretty scary moment to realize I'm overheating and I can't do anything about it. And I pulled myself out of it on the show. If you've seen the show, you can see me do it. But that was scary. That was fun.